First story, Man in White. I was a child. I must have been around 5 or 6 years old. Almost every morning something happened that was already routine. There was a power outage in the neighborhood and I fell out of my bunk as I slept on the top bunk and had no protection. One of those nights, I fell out of my bunk and started crying until my mother came to me. She slept in the same room as my parents. I got thirsty and asked to go with her to the kitchen to drink water. The kitchen was next to the bedroom and next to the bathroom. A hallway connected the bedroom to the kitchen and the bathroom, which was at the end, facing the hallway. After drinking water, we went back to the room. I held my mother's nightgown and decided to look back. When I looked, I saw the bathroom door open and an all-white man with black eyes sitting on the toilet looking at me. I looked at him during that time, until I returned to the room. I wasn't that scared. I think because of my young age and sleep, I didn't understand the situation very well, but it left an impression on me and I always remembered the figure I called the white man. Second story, was anyone here? My wife and I were watching TV in the living room. I noticed something passing under the table, but as we have 3 cats, I thought it was one of them. There was a kitten lying asleep next to us. My wife said to me, "Look," and I looked at the table. On the side there was a small bottle of water and the water inside was shaking, as if something had almost tipped over the bottle and it hadn't fallen, but the water inside was shaking. Then she asked me if I saw something pass by. I said yes and said I think it was Juju. Juju is one of our cats, not the one lying on the couch. Then she got up, went to our room and the other 2 cats were there, Juju and my other cat, sleeping on the bed. Then she got a little confused, wanting to know what had happened on the table and how she had shaken the water. I said it must have been an animal. I looked under the table, on the TV stand, nothing. Then I tried to simulate pushing the coffee table to push the water and see if I could get the same effect, but I couldn't. Then, my wife asked if I had placed a chair facing us. One of the chairs at the dining table was facing us and neither she nor I remembered doing that. We don't even move the chairs when we don't have guests. We were watching a serial killer documentary. She started to get bored and wanted to stop watching. I tried to rationalize and explain what had happened, how we saw something pass by the table, the chair overturned, etc., but I confessed that it was difficult. I'm very rational and I also didn't have a very plausible explanation. Third story, coincidence? Or not? I had changed the car battery about 2 months ago. I went to a farm, rural area, dirt road, little wooden bridges where only one vehicle passes. On a bridge about 500 m before the farmhouse there was a car parked, broken down, with the hood raised and people trying to fix it. About 20 meters behind him was a tractor, also broken down, that had gone there to remove the car from the bridge. Okay, I couldn't pass. I parked my car on the side of the road and walked to the farmhouse. I did what I had to do and, when I came back, the scenario was still the same. I got in my car, put the key in the starter and it didn't start. 3 vehicles broken down in the middle of nowhere in a rural area within a space of about 100 meters. The guys from the first broken car took their battery and made a pacifier in my car. I left, drove 40 kilometers on dirt roads without being able to let the car die. I went straight to the electric where I had bought the battery. They put a temporary one in my car until the report arrived from the factory that authorized them to put a new one. Lucky for me it was under warranty. But 3 vehicles breaking down in the same place on the same day was very strange. Fourth story, the clock. When I was a teenager, my great uncle and my parents lived with dementia. One day, he got worse all at once. He didn't even get out of bed. He no longer spoke, he didn't eat alone, he didn't turn over alone in bed. My father asked another family member to help take care of him since we had been working on this for years. They took him to live in another city, but as he was very sick, all their belongings stayed here, including an old wall clock, the kind that can be wound with a pendulum. The watch belonged to that great uncle's late wife, who died very young. That clock hadn't been wound for years, but it started ringing at home 2 or 3 days after they took the uncle away. I always thought someone wounded in secret, but the hands didn't move either. It wasn't due to small oscillations of the pendulum either, because the clock was lying down and not standing up on the wall. This went on for months. One day they told me that this uncle had passed away. I never heard the clock ring again. My father took it to be repaired and discovered that the spring was broken and it was not even possible to wind the watch. Fifth story, the dream. I dreamed of a death that was going to happen, but of the wrong person. One night I had a scary dream that was so real, in which a friend was in a dark environment, looking extremely sad. The air was heavy, everything went dark, and a friend of ours appeared saying that said person had died, but he didn't directly mention that it was the girl who had appeared, only someone had died. It was a dream that really worried me, so much so that I was afraid she had actually died. I even called her and told her what happened. Luckily she was fine, and I wouldn't think about that dream again until 1 month later, a Sunday when I was away from my cell phone all day. When I picked up my cell phone at night, there was a message from this friend who appeared in the dream saying that someone had died. And the déjà vu was very strange. He was getting in touch to say that another friend of ours had died earlier in a car accident. And at the time I remembered the dream I had, and the first person I spoke to when I found out about this friend's death was to speak to the girl I had dreamed of. I never really understood what exactly happened, why I dreamed about it 1 month before, especially since the dead person was not the same person in the dream. Sixth story, could it be an alien? It happened when he was about 10 years old, or less. I was spending a few days at my grandmother's farm. It was already evening and we were preparing for dinner. That was when the caretaker saw a focus of red light that seemed to move across the sky. We all went to see, and the bright spot was really moving. In fact, it was getting closer. As it got closer, the circumference of the light increased and turned an intense scarlet hue. Just like the diameter of the UFO, I think I can call it that, my fear gradually increased. The damn object actually showed signs of landing in a vegetable garden close to the site, and absolutely no individual present there demonstrated that they knew how to deal with such a situation. When the perplexity had left any human being inert, in that place, the dog, apparently noticing the object and the danger it brought with it, began to bark frantically. Implying that it was intimidated by the barking of a poor stray, the UFO retreated until it disappeared over the horizon. Seventh story, the journey. I'm a spiritualist, so I've seen a lot of things between heaven and earth that our vain philosophy can't explain. But I'm going to tell you a case that didn't happen to me, but to my ex's nephew, and I was at the time. At the time he was about 3 years old, and we went traveling to a city in the interior of the neighboring state. Detail, it was his first trip there. We got there, went to the hotel, and then went to the central square. Arriving at this square, the boy looks around and says, "I already lived here." Everyone says, "No, you never lived here. We live in that city." And the boy insists, "I did live in the greenhouse next to so-and-so's shop." As we are spiritualists, the mother started to encourage us to see how far the boy's story would go. Until he said that the house was close to the square and asked if he wanted him to take us. His mother said yes, and he took it. He took us to the side of the city that we hadn't visited yet. The boy was super determined and looked like he really knew where he was going. He entered some streets, until we saw a little market, and next door was a very old greenhouse. We go to the grocery store in disbelief and ask who the grocery store belongs to, and the cashier responds, "It's so-and-so's grocery store." It was too much of a coincidence. We even asked about the greenhouse next door, and a lady who was doing her shopping said that a man lived there about 10 years ago, but that he died and no one had lived in the house since then. We tried to find out who this gentleman was, but no one knew. The funniest thing is that today this little boy, who is already around 8 or 9 years old, remembers everything about this trip, even things that we barely remember, except this specific part. It seems that this event did not exist for him. But everyone who was there at the time remembers.